Okay, so we start properly today. The 10 levels that the Chovos Levavos brings about a person's belief in Torah and their willingness to accept Hashem's mitzvahs upon themselves. And he said that these 10 levels, they are crucial for a person to know them, because what it does is, first of all, he says you have to identify which level resonates the most with you, which one you're the closest to. So it's never going to be exactly perfect, but there'll be, by and large, the bulk of your life will resonate with one of the levels. And then you'll know what's the level above you, what differentiates you from the ones just above. And you'll also know ultimately where you're aiming towards, level 10, what you've got to get to. And in that way, he says, step by step, a person can grow and develop their emunah in Hashem's Torah and their willingness to accept the mitzvahs upon himself. Okay, so we're going to start today with level 1. Okay, tchilosam, starting level, the beginning. Anoshim nasa oisa masichlus. I found the Rishonim, they don't mince their words. You know, stupidity carries them in life. Okay, they are carried by stupidity. Gam goiver atayvus alayim limois b'Torah, and their passions for this world totally overpower their life and make them despise Torah. Okay, so category 1, just an unbelievable first line definition of the person. Number 1, he calls them idiots. Okay? He doesn't call them idiots because they have a low IQ. They could be actually the highest IQ in the world. They just never apply their brain to their life. That is not what's the driving force in their life at all. What drives their life is these overpowering desires to partake of this world, and it produces a despising of Torah. The fascinating, I think it's unbelievably fascinating. Here we go, we'll see why. They view the Torah as like customs that, you know, every culture has its customs. Greeks have their customs, and Italians have their customs, and there's Jewish customs as well, you know, traditions. And rules that idiots follow. Okay, they look at people who listen to the Torah and keep the mitzvahs as brainwashed sheep who can't think for themselves. That's it. Laws for the dorf, for people who can't actually think for themselves and be enlightened and live life for themselves. That's their view of Torah. Customs, traditions, and if you really follow it, you literally haven't applied your mind, brainwashed, totally brainwashed or brainless that you would follow the Torah. And why do they think that? He says, because their passions for this world completely dominate their mind, and they are very coarse, physical beings who deeply entrenched in this world. So his premise is profound, because he's saying the following. He's saying that a person's perspective on Torah and your view on it is a byproduct of your inner passions. It has nothing to do with your brain. It has nothing to do with deep intellectual analysis. These people view Torah as customs and traditions, or as rules for fools, because their life is totally dominated by their passions, and their mind doesn't switch on for 1 iota. Not for 1 second. That produces a certain perspective on Torah. I want you to carry on. He says like this: "V'einam nichnasim tachas ol Torah." They never place themselves under the yoke of Torah, meaning they'll never accept the responsibility of mitzvahs on their shoulders. Not only that, they are never drawn by the chains of intellect. Just his language is also magnificent. Intellect is not the thread that pulls them through their life. What they want in their life is to do whatever they want. They want hefka. There's no better word. You can't make no English word for that. Just leave me alone to do as I please. That's what they want. And therefore their life is driven by their desire to do as they want, to do as they please. And therefore nothing intellectual with consequences and thinking into the future will ever guide their life. Nothing to do with Torah. None of that. No logic will guide and lead them. And certainly not the Torah's logic. Because the Torah's logic is way beyond human logic. Human logic will tell you not to do certain things in this world because it's going to hurt you in this world. The Torah says to you, never mind the things that are going to hurt you in this world. Don't do certain things going to hurt you in a world you have never been to. It's like, that's a logical demand from a person which is a much higher level. They can't even be drawn by simple logic of this world. Their desire is to do as they want and to do as they please. And that desire produces a despising of all rules, but especially of the Torah. And so they develop and concoct a view of Torah, which is one where they feel that either it's at best traditions which Grandpa told us, what is that? That's some traditions that we do on Friday night, and some we do and some we don't. Or, if you're really into it, those guys, the fools that actually follow them. But it's actually, they have no capacity for rules to guide their life, because what they want is to express their desires untamed in this world. And like these people, Amar HaChochem, Shlomo, King Solomon, when he describes this category of person, he says the following in Mishlei. Lo yachpoitz ksil bitfuna. An idiot does not want to understand anything. Ki'im behis galois liboy. All he wants is that his heart's desires are expressed in this world. Now, Shlomo Melech calls that person an idiot. So does the Chovos Levados, follows his lead and calls him an idiot, not because he has a low IQ. Could be a genius. He just doesn't use his brain to guide his life. He uses his heart and his passions to guide his life. The brain and logic never come into the fore. And so they will despise and have a total aversion to the Torah and its rules. Not because they've ever explored it, not because they've ever investigated it, never probably learned one page of Gemara in their life. The view is developed because it suits their desire to express their passions. They cannot have a rule book that's demanding and restricting and limiting them. And so they develop a very intellectual looking down upon the people that actually keep that foolish book. Okay. A few things I want to just say about this category of people is very interesting. First of all, he does include them in the people who have a relationship to Torah. He says there's 10 levels of people who have a connection to Torah and a willingness to accept their mitzvahs. These guys have no willingness to accept mitzvahs, that's for sure. But belief in the Torah, they count it, because they actually do have a relationship to Torah. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't have to hate it so much. They wouldn't have to have such an opinion. Somehow it still connects to their life, and they have to push it out by looking down upon it or pushing it. But it's not that they're indifferent to Torah. Tinok Shenishma has got no connection with Torah. There's Torah there has something in their life, but they forcefully put it out. I was speaking to a guy yesterday, and he claimed to be an atheist. But he said someone said to him, if you're an atheist, why are you so angry with him? He doesn't exist. Anger towards God is also a relationship. You can't be angry with something which isn't there. So that's slightly different to this point, but it's the same point. They have an anger towards Torah. They hate Torah. Okay, hating Torah is a madriga. There's something there still to work with. You can work with this person. What's very interesting, the next point I want to share with you is that in the next level, he starts to reason with the person on that level and explains to them why their logic's flawed. In this level, he's silent. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't get into it with them. Why? Because Shlomo says, they're not interested in logic. They're not interested in understanding. They've got it all wrong, true, but they're not interested in actually grasping it. So then you can't speak to them. There's nothing to say. The brain's off. Rabbi Lochter once told me about a person that describes an interaction I had with a certain person, and he said to me, that guy's brain is finished. Finished. I was quite offended when he said that. I know the person, but he didn't mean that the guy's an idiot. He just means it does not operate in his life. So stop going with intellectual arguments to a guy whose brain is switched off. This category of person's brain is switched off. It's switched off. In service to God, in things of Torah, it's switched off. So don't go there. Don't go there with your brain. Don't go there with your arguments. It's not going to work. Okay? And so he doesn't get into it. He doesn't start explaining in a logical way these are not traditions. These are actually very holy laws. Don't go there. Don't go there. The people who keep Torah, I know very clever people who keep Torah. Not everybody keeps Torah. Don't go there with him. It's not going to change his mind. He doesn't want to change his mind. He wants to express his desires unbridled, without limitations, and until that changes, there's no space to talk to him to actually get him to actually apply his mind a little bit to what Torah actually is. And Hashem never gives up on anybody. And this category of person, there will be gaps in their life where Hashem will open the door and they'll have an opportunity to actually see things. And it'll be very hard for you to get through to such a person. I have seen some of the Rishonim when they try and they explain a person who doesn't keep Torah how to where they're going wrong. They use a certain line of logic, which I think maybe could work here, but it's not really actually logic. They're just saying that it's your desire is to get all your desires expressed in this world. This guy, yes. You want any rules, they have the deepest expressions of pleasures in this world that you could possibly have. Yes. I'm telling you, the way you're going about doing it is wrong. Because the way you're going about it, your experience of those pleasures will die, and it will end up with remorse, or a sore stomach, or worse. Your method of going about it is actually poor. I'll just give you a basic example. A young couple who's getting married. So what would stop the husband from wanting to keep the laws of family purity? Don't tell me when I can be with my wife and when I can't be with my wife. That's my prerogative. I want the deepest, most expressive sexual relationship with my wife. Very good, but if you go about it that way, before you're married, you and her will lose interest in each other. So actually, if you want the deepest, longest lasting, meaningful sexual relationship with your wife, why don't you try the Torah's method? It actually works and will keep you interested in your wife until she's 90. But you understand, it's just a different, we're not just staying in his world. You want all those, your method of getting your pleasures is just crum. It's not going to work. It's like when you go to a delicious restaurant to go and eat, a great restaurant to go and eat food. That's like a place where you want to go unbridled and eat. But there's many times when you leave there and you feel much more sick than when you went in. You just overdid it. You had starters and then mains, and then by the time the desserts came, you couldn't resist, and you leave actually unbridled engagement in the physical world. You always ends up like that. It always ends up like that. So even if your motivation is to get unbridled, uncontained enjoyment in the world, you need a framework in order to be able to express that and engage in a way which is actually continuously pleasurable and doesn't actually end up being destructive to you. So anyway, he doesn't get into it. I'm just saying, but perhaps to a person like that, you could speak. It's not telling them to keep the mitzvahs. You're not telling them to be subservient to a God. They're not interested in that. But actually, like stepping into your world, like if you want a real enjoyment of this world, just going about it very, very wrong. Very wrong. One of the lines which he says here, which is at the core of it all, he says is that intellect does not pull these people. Because what they want is hefker. They want unbridled, no rules, be able to do whatever you want. And when that is the basis of your life, then you can never have a engaging relationship, positively engaging relationship with Torah. You'll always despise it. It's worth saying, but it's when someone tells you that a boy can be a girl, and a girl can be a cat, and a cat can be a boy. You're sitting right here. That's the brain is not working. It doesn't mean you're stupid. You're a stupid idiot. In nursery school, they can tell the difference between a boy, a girl, a cat, and a dog. And you can't. No, we enlightened. We see the world. That's an old-fashioned. That's the old world. This category of people will not allow basic intellect to guide their life. What they want is to do whatever they want. That's the core of it. And so intellect is shot out so far. No, I don't think the world would ever have expected such a thing. So far shot out that even boys, girls, dogs, cats, now none of that can be taken for granted anymore. That's a total destruction of the brain's involvement in your life and guiding you and directing you. And they present themselves as intellectual giants and the rest of the world as idiots. It's exactly what he says. The rest of that's old-fashioned stuff. Fools, idiots. How can you think a boy is a boy because a boy is come on. Can't be. And then you start to think, what's actually going on here? Because they're actually clever people. But they're stupid. They're clever idiots because they don't actually allow their intellect to guide and direct their life, because their intellect would create impositions in their life, restrictions in their life, which they don't want, and therefore they undo any type of binding logic that any impact that it would have on their life, to give them the space to be able to do whatever they want. But this category of people, they always present themselves as looking down on things which are actually very sound logic. They'll look down on Torah. They'll look down on the people who keep the Torah. They'll look down on the rules. They always come from a very, very high place, but actually their place is the lowest of the low, where they have no mental application to the decisions that they make. Every decision that's made is a weighing up of which passion you would like to dominate and express the most, and nobody should stand in your way of your passions being expressed. You can't reason with this person, Shlomo says. They don't want to understand. All they want is to have their desires expressed in this world. Okay. That's someone asked me, in this section, the Choslas want to be very careful that you must classify yourself into one of the categories that we're going to learn together, because that's how you'll grow. There will be parts of you that got left behind. It's like you grow like a tree. It doesn't grow like a building where you build the first floor. It's like a tree. There's some branches which are still a bit behind. But by and large, the tree is on level 3, but there's one or two branches there. But you are a level 3 person, not a level 1 person. But just to give you a taste, because if you can taste level 1 in your life, you'll also be able to relate to people who are on level 1. Okay, so you may be, please God, you're on level 4 or 5 when we get there. But there are parts of you that are still on level 1. And what it connected to, what he's shown us, is that your thinking that the Torah is outdated or foolish is deeply connected to your desires. So where you have a very particularly strong desire, physical desire in this world for something, which stands in the way of the Torah, chances are the mitzvahs that relate to that taiva, you will have a quasi-feeling like these people have towards it. And I just feel like it's a key for you to be able to relate to them, actually. I'll give you an example. I don't know if this is in your circles, but in my circles. Letting your children swim on Shabbos. I mean, come on, Oaks, who's going to build a raft? I'm serious. A raft. I've never built a raft. I wouldn't know how to build a raft. So my child can't swim on Shabbos because they're going to build a raft. Come on. Now, what happened there? Why would you have a feeling like that towards the Chachamim? It's a feeling of disdain, of like it's just inappropriate, outdated, doesn't suit our lifestyle. Because you've got 5 kids on Shabbos day screaming in your ears and you'd like to have a Shabbos shlof, and it would be just so great if you could just tell them, just go jump in the pool and play for 2 hours so I can just... something there is pulling at you. Or your friends' kids are swimming and you feel so bad that your children are the only ones sitting on the side watching them. So now there's emotions inside of you which are playing, which really want you to be able to get your kids or yourself into that pool, and it starts to create a perception of those particular, of course you believe in the Torah, but those particular rules, like, seriously, you know? I don't, can you guys relate to that? I don't know if I give you other examples as well. But it's what he's showing us is that it's your deep passions which stand in contrast to Torah, which will develop a aversion to Torah, a disdain and a looking down of Torah. Category 1 have that for every aspect of Torah, because every one of their passions and desires wants to be expressed. There's no limit and no containment for it. And therefore, it's a total whitewash of the entire Torah. And could be for us, or whatever, you've grown up a bit, but there's a few little dangling things. When you think of parts of the Torah which irritate you, you look down upon them, you must know there's a deep part of you there, of your emotions, which is being held back by the Torah in that area, and it's creating that perception that you have. Okay, so the category 1, if you can say it again in summary, he says they are governed by foolishness. They don't apply their mind to their life. They want an expression of their desires unencumbered in this world. And because of that, it's their emotions which govern every decision, and they have disdain for any type of logic to guide their life, and certainly the Torah's guide to life, and therefore they fabricate a certain perception that it's old rules, archaic traditions, rules for fools, whatever it will be, so that it doesn't need to actually speak to them. Okay, good. Category 2. We'll start, and then we'll carry on next week. Category 2 is very interesting. Okay, the way he describes it, I'm not sure we have anybody around nowadays who thinks about it quite the way this category 2 thought about it in his time, but we have category 2s for sure. I'm just going to try and give you their logic when we get to it. Okay, he says as follows. Category 2, this is a level up. Anoshim lo yochlu lidchois ha'oisos ulhachish ha'moisim asher niru al yedei nevim. They can't push aside or deny the signs and miracles that were performed by the prophets in the Torah. They can't deny it. They can't deny that there were people who had a relationship with God, who performed miracles empowered by God and were communicated to by God. Because they're just so widely accepted and known, it would be foolish to deny it. They're not idiots, and they couldn't deny it. And we'll see. For them, there's certain undeniable truths. They're not going to go against the basic truths of the world. And they said that the fact that they were prophets, that God spoke to and they did miracles, that they can't deny. Everybody accepts that the Jewish people came out of Egypt, that the sea split. Those things are so widely accepted in the world. They don't have the audacity to go against that. But they do have doubts over the authenticity of the Torah. And their words are very close to the words of category 1 that we've mentioned above. God wanted to guide people how to live their life here on earth. And enlightened prophets to guide humanity. Certain laws of guidance, how to live life best on earth. And Hashem empowered this Navi with miracles and wonders so that people would believe in him and receive his rules. But they have absolutely no belief in reward and punishment. Okay, so I'll just take a brief, and then we'll do it much more in depth next week. Category 2, they believe in God. Totally, no doubt about that. They believe there's God who speaks to novice, and he allows him to even do miracles. What they have, there are two issues which they have. Number 1, no belief in reward and punishment. No consequences for your actions. And they are in doubt over the authenticity of Torah. That every single word in there actually was given by God and actually is true, and was the oral law actually, is it a broken chain that's gone? There are a lot of doubts and questions over the authenticity of the Torah, and they have no belief in consequences for your actions, not in this world, not in another world. That doesn't exist. But they definitely do believe that there is a God who created the world and did communicate with human beings as well. Okay, we're going to go that into depth next week. Actually, an unbelievably fascinating piece, how he starts to pick apart that. And I think we'll learn a lot. Okay,